Three,
2.
1.
Hello, we're back with our Nameless podcast about Killing Eve. I'm Kat Scott.
I'm Abbey.
Woo! And I don't know if you listened to our last podcast, but today's podcast is going to be focused primarily on the most recent episode of Killing Eve, which was episode 7 of season 2. Yeah. And we did just watch the series finale of an 8-year-long show. But we're just going to skip right past it because
who really cares?
It was so dumb. So it was so dumb that we're just going to pretend it never happened and just move directly to Killing Eve.
And that 8 years of our viewing life wasn't just completely flushed down the toilet.
Yeah.
We'll just skip right over that for some good quality TV content instead.
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed this last episode. I will probably go through the text that I was sending you while I was watching it as prompts.
Yeah.
I guess I started with... Oh, no. It goes further. Oh, okay, yeah, it started just really gay. And I thought that those two party girls were going to end up on that kebab.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really what it was setting up. Was like, oh, like, they were so worried that she was a bad dude. And
yeah.
I thought she was just gonna, like, eat them. Like, I thought we were going, like, Sweeney Todd style. And I was like, okay, I'm still down. Like, it's interesting how far this show can go with, like, graphic, horrible murder content. And for me to be like, and yet I'm still down for Villanelle.
Yeah, I definitely think that's an interesting part because they definitely, like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of shows kind of, they'll be like, oh, we need to make this character likable, so, like, let's tone down her, her bad shit, but this show is like, nah, we're gonna keep pushing it, and we're just gonna see how far we can go before the audience is like, you know, maybe this isn't cool, maybe we shouldn't like Villanelle, and, they definitely haven't gotten to that point with me, at least, because I still love her very much.
Yeah, me too, like, to the point where I was like, I had already accepted that these two party girls were dead. I was, like, a little bit curious about how they were going to deliver that information.
Yeah.
And so it was wild to see them come from a threesome instead. That was fun.
Yeah.
Also, I was a little frustrated, again, with what I, like, talked about last week. Just, like, the proximity that Eve and Villanelle are with each other now. Like, there's no... Before this, it was, like... I saw some quote about, or maybe you mentioned this quote of, like, they haven't, no, it was on Tumblr, because Elizabeth sent me a Tumblr post about it. How much, like, tension has built up just for, like, approximately, like, 30 seconds of them spending time together. But now they're, like, spending time together where, like, we're dropped into a scene where we don't know what they were doing before or after. And that's been kind of frustrating, is like the tension of, like, every second that they're together is, like, building tension is kind of lost when, like, we enter a scene and they're already in the same room.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. That was, like, the episode where they finally, like, reunited in person, which I guess was 5, I think. And then, like, you know, they have the whole thing where Eve is up against the counter and they cut, and then they go to, you know, them just, like, walking to a car, and then they cut again to, oh, now we're in the forest, and it's like, okay, we just missed some juicy bits here. Like, what? So I
Yeah.
definitely can agree with that, and how it's for sure a change of pace. Um, I can appreciate how they're trying to kind of reroute that tension in a way, you know, where it's like instead of the tension of them being in a room together, it's the tension of what are they going to do in this room together kind of thing, which I definitely think is interesting. But I agree that that it can be kind of like a whiplash almost compared to last season.
Yeah. My mind keeps flashing to this kebab. I'm like, I'm kind of like frustrated that there's no human on it,
I'm
Sweeney Todd
really
style.
I'm
Only
really
because I used to eat from those a lot when I was studying abroad in Switzerland. That was our drunk, like, drunchy food that we
mhm.
would go to at night, and it's all we could afford in Switzerland because the cost of living is so high. So when we were living there during the weekdays, we would eat from the specific kebab place that was like one of those giant rotating meat sticks, and that was like our favorite food. And so I just like am now obsessing that like a human needs to be on there, but now I think it was just a throwaway line.
Yeah.
This
Either
is
that
why I have a hard
or
time.
yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say?
It's just why I have a hard time with specific details and shows, because sometimes I'm right and the detail plays out, but if
Mhm.
like there's a detail where I think it's going one way and I think it would be fun if it played out that way and it
Mhm.
doesn't happen, then I just
Yeah.
like obsess about it the entire season, and then I'm like obsessing about something that's like not even relevant. So
Where's my cannibalism, god damn it?
exactly.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
next episode I'm gonna be like, are we gonna do it? Is this gonna come back in season 4? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it could go either way. I don't know. Like they definitely tried to set it up real hard that she was gonna kill these two girls, especially because like right before the two girls even like come into the shop, she's just staring at this platter with two pig heads on it. And then it's like, "Oh, here comes two girls." Like, "Oh, what's going to
Mm.
happen now? We're following them." Like, "Ooh." But also, I feel like, I don't know, maybe she hates Aaron so much that she's literally like, I'm going to put you in a meat grinder and consume you. Or, I don't know. I thought that she was going to feed Aaron somebody, and that was going to be like her little revenge. Like, ha ha ha, joke's on you, you're a cannibal now.
I always forget his name. I always forget like why we're supposed to care about him. But this episode he actually got me. There's something about making a dude like asexual that like
hmm
makes me like more engaged with their
Yeah, yeah.
storyline.
It's so much more interesting because it's like, you know, her being all, I don't want to sleep with you, and him being like, don't worry about that. But then he goes and he's like, let me see you eat. Touch
Right.
that
No, he's
shirt.
definitely, yeah, he's definitely in that like more like voyeur kink like
Yeah.
category, but
Yeah.
still there's something about that that I'm like, you're so much more interesting for me to watch
Oh,
now. Now
100%.
now that I know this isn't going to end in some like weird like
Yeah.
boring heterosex thing.
Yeah. I definitely think a lot of people were worried about them fucking or something, which was like, ugh, God, wouldn't that have been awful? But instead we got
Yeah.
a gay threesome, which, you know, thank God. Honestly,
I
yeah.
I had a really an annoying time with it was at the end. I can wait till the end, but just the British boy at the end. Oh, so annoying. I was like, "Yes, she's going to go masturbate." And then like he was in the fucking bed and I was like, "No!" Like she keeps doing this. Like she I know that it's like interesting that she's like using men to get off about a woman. Like I get
hmm
that, but still like I would fully just appreciate if there was just like no percent men as an outlet. Like, I think it would have been really fun if she was just jerking it and it was her own little weird secret that she was
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like if it had been, I don't know, I guess different circumstances where, you know, I feel like every time that she's been horny with like Villanelle, there just so happens to be a boy around. You know, if she was alone, she would have just jerked it. Like, she's not seeking out these men, she's just using them. But also, yeah, any sort of heterosexual content is something that I'm not, not really about. So,
You know what I just realized? Is that both the Nico time and this British boy time, they don't actually show like a sex scene. They
yeah,
just like show the beginning and then like
yeah.
afterwards being like,
Thank
"Get me
God.
coffee."
Yeah.
Yeah, like she's always like clothed.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like not we're not in any state of undress or anything. It's just
Yeah.
like right before any of that and then after, which I
Yeah.
think now I'm realizing I'm grateful for.
Oh yeah, very much so. And I really hope that they kind of juxtapose that with, if we eventually get, a Villanelle and Eve sex scene, it's gonna be, there's gonna be some detail to it, so to speak, or it's not just gonna be like, ooh, let's fuck, cut to black, hey, we fucked. It's gonna be, we're gonna see at least some of that middle ground, because I think that would be a really interesting, um, like I said, juxtaposition, just to see, Eve with these men and Eve with Villanelle and how different that is.
Yeah, I would love like a whole episode
Where
of
it's just
just
them fucking.
yeah, in like
Yeah.
different weird contexts.
Yeah.
Just like
Oh, 100%.
different stakes. It keeps changing. The scene gets longer. Or like in or like or like in Blue is the Warmest Color. So long. Like so needlessly long. Like it
God.
didn't make any sense. Like was just educational for me. It was strictly just like, okay, I don't know how to do this and I'm too afraid to look up porn. I have this scene at least. Oh my
I'm
god.
glad it was helpful, at least to somebody, instead of just being
Yeah, it
garbo.
was practical.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was a
yeah.
practical resource.
Good.
I really liked the shepherd's pie moment.
I think there was a lot of those moments in this episode in particular that really had me good, and that shepherd's pie moment was real good. It was quality stuff.
I loved the way that they dropped us. Like they dropped that scene
Yeah,
as if it was nothing
yeah,
and then like picked it up at the very end when I had
yeah.
already forgotten about it.
Me too. Whenever they cut back to it, I was like, "Oh my god, how could I have forgotten about this fucking thing?" But then it's like, wow, that really is the power of being fucking horny, because literally these two women just, interacting together, and I'm like, "What? Murder? Don't know. All I know is that these two women want to fuck, and that's all I care about." Man. Speaking of horny, one of the things that I thought was really funny about this episode is how they kind of have this song that plays whenever one of the characters is horny, and it usually plays, when Villanelle and Eve are together. But this episode, I think it was the only time they played it, was whenever Villanelle first tasted the fucking pasta. And I'm like, God, if that's not a mood when you taste food so good that you just get fucking horny, like, that they emphasized that moment with that music. I'm sure that it was supposed to be like, ooh, maybe she's horny for Aaron, but I just read it as good food, I'm wet.
I actually watched that scene not intentionally, but because of how I had to watch this episode, I watched that specific pasta. I just spit on myself. That specific pasta part, I watched it 3 times because I had to watch it as like the preview, and then it was like a preview to the preview, and then I like again when I loaded them. So I just like I really got a mouthful of that scene.
Which is funny because apparently Jodie Comer almost died during that scene.
No, did she
Yeah.
choke?
Yeah. She like straight up almost like choked to death. From what I read about it, I guess she was doing a take where Villanelle just ate the pasta real sloppy like, and one of the noodles just went straight down, and
Oh my god.
the actor didn't know if she was actually choking or if this was just an artistic decision of hers. And so
Oh
she
my
like
god.
she was choking for a good hot second before they were like, "Oh, she needs to like like she's going to die."
That's terrifying.
I know.
That's
Fucking
honestly a nightmare. That's
man.
a nightmare.
Yeah.
That's my nightmare. Because my mom has
Villanelle.
always instilled this fear of like Heimlich maneuver since I was a
Yeah.
young
Dude,
child.
do you get the thing where whenever you're alone and you're eating, you're like
I don't want to think about it. I
viscerally
haven't thought about it in months. So, because I live
Okay.
alone,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like, like you still live with like some pets and some humans and stuff. And
Mhm.
not that the pets have opposable thumbs or could help you, but
Mhm.
something is comforting about that.
Yeah.
I push that thought far, far away because I'm alone so often here, and I could
Mhm.
easily die choking easily.
Understandable.
I
Yeah.
also watched the first half of Final Destination recently,
Oh
so
my
like
god.
that part of my mind is like working a little too much.
Oof, man. Ooh. I get that. Yeah, I remember those times. Oh, okay. I guess first off, I think it's just really interesting how I don't know, how they show Villanelle kind of care for a person for I don't want to say the first time, but really the first time that I can remember where she's like, "Hey, you okay, bro?" And actually, like wants to hear Eve talk about it and help her. But then she has this moment, where Eve is trying to kind of like figure out in her own way if Villanelle cares about her by asking about that whole speech from the other day. And
Wait,
Villanelle,
I don't remember this. Can you refresh? I don't know
yes,
what
yes,
you're
yes,
referring
yes.
to.
Um, so in the first 2 minutes, Eve comes in and she sits on the bed, and she's all tired and obviously fucked up, or not fucked up, but not in a good place. And Villanelle is concerned in, I guess, in her own way, and she asks, "Oh, you okay?" And she asks like, "Oh, do you want to talk about it?" And Eve isn't really about that, but Villanelle is like, "No, no, no, we should talk about it. Honesty is the best policy." Um, and then uh, Eve reveals that she's been thinking about Villanelle's speech about how she's bored with everything and how
Yeah.
she doesn't, really feel anything and all that. And so Eve is like, "Hey, were you telling the truth there?" And Villanelle says she doesn't know because
Yeah.
she genuinely doesn't know when she's telling the truth or lying. Like she can't identify those emotions, which I think is really, really interesting. And I also think it's
Yeah.
really, really interesting that she can identify that she can't
She doesn't know.
identify. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's such a self-awareness that I find really, really interesting.
Yeah, it was.
Um,
I felt like we caught her like self-reflecting for the first
yeah,
time.
yeah, and
She's
I
like, "No,
definitely
I
yeah,
don't." Like,
and I feel
I've
like
never thought about that.
I feel like this season and her meeting Eve has forced her to have a lot more self-reflection, you know? Like like that the mirror scene whenever she's crying at the end of that one episode, and she's watching herself cry in the mirror, which oof, let me
I
tell
don't
you,
remember. Don't remember that either.
that was I don't know, it sticks out in my mind because it was one of my favorite moments, I think, like really in the series. Um, but maybe I'm just a sucker for scenes of people crying in mirrors. Uh, but
I
but
used to do that a lot.
it's I feel
I don't
like
do it as much, but I definitely used to do that a fair amount. Just like
it it's
dissociating while watching myself cry.
yeah, and I definitely think it's like a classic almost like Oscar bait moment, like if you have a scene in a movie where you're crying in front of a mirror and like go from "ooh, I'm so sad, cry cry cry" to fake smile or like, ooh, I'm smiling now, I'm putting on the face. The Oscars
Yeah.
watch that and just jerk off because they fucking love it so much.
Yeah.
Um, but you
I'm
know,
totally gonna have that moment one day. Just fully so I can check that box. Like, this was all for something. All these
hmm
high school and college years where I was crying in my bathroom to myself,
they
staring
were
at
all
myself.
practice for
And
this
then put on a
moment.
face for no one.
Yeah.
For
Um,
my yogurt. My midnight yogurt
my
snack.
midnight yogurt. Um, but okay, back to that moment. Where after Villanelle is like, I don't know if I'm being truthful or whatever. Eve is like, so you don't feel anything, and it's obviously, or at least I interpret it as Eve trying to figure out if Villanelle cares about her, you know, where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you don't feel anything, not even for me. But then
Classic high school.
yeah, right. But then Villanelle kind of has this moment, and I was curious how, if you interpreted it a different way or whatnot, um, where she kind of like, I don't know, the whole, I feel things when I'm with you, which we as an audience member know is fucking true because she's been kind of an emotional bitch lately because of Eve and all this stuff. But she has this moment where like her sounded like it was her being manipulative, like her kind of picking up on that cue that, oh, this is why Eve is asking this, and so she's like, I'm going to take this moment to, you know, kind of get what I want and reel Eve in more.
Yeah,
um
I feel that way too. Yeah.
yeah, which
I
I don't
feel like
know.
there was still like a yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. As I look into the relationships in my life, um I feel like I'm always looking for I was just talking to a friend. I recommended this show to a
Mhm.
friend who's a friend adjacent who identifies as like formerly psychopathic
Okay.
and but with like I don't know 6 years sober and getting
hmm
sober at like a very young age like 15 or 16
hmm
uh he has expressed through like lots of like meetings and stuff that he has a lot less psychopathic behavior. But we had this weird conversation today, and that's when I recommended Killing Eve. um where it was as if he was like kind of getting off on the fear that he was like creating in the room of me and this other like femme friend of mine by talking about his former psychopath ways and
Yeah.
his mysterious psychopath ways, and even if
hmm
he's like recovered from that,
hmm
it still felt like there was a part in which he was getting off a little bit on like the like that like manipulative universe that used to
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
And so I do think like I think this show's interesting because it's like looking at a psychopath and
hmm
making us look at a psychopath and being like, okay, but still a psychopath. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
still is manipulative. Even
hmm
if she has feelings, even
Yeah.
if like what is the line in
Yeah.
which how far can we realistically go while still like being defined on it's so and it's such a like anti-hero like
hmm
it's weird
Yeah.
it's so rare to like
Yeah.
be still rooting for such a like manipulative character.
Yeah. And I don't know. And it's so interesting because like it's so ingrained in her, you know, that like in that moment, I genuinely, like I said, we as an audience know she's telling the truth. And I think she knows she's telling the truth, but just because she's naturally the person she is. She's natural, you know, she's manipulative. She still, even if she's telling the truth, puts a manipulative spin on it, which is so interesting because it's like, I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine that because it's like, you don't need to, right?
Well, but like she
But
can't not, I think,
yeah,
is what you're
exactly.
demonstrating.
Yeah. Which I think is just really, really interesting. The I don't know. To me, the whole concept that of from what I've read, that they're trying to be like, you know, they apparently did a lot of research on psychopaths and all that kind of stuff, which I think it shows. Like I think from
Yeah, I especially like the nuance of like
mm-hmm,
of there's probably it's probably much more of a spectrum than we've ever really
yeah,
looked at
yeah,
based on the way that they're
mm-hmm,
developing this character.
mm-hmm,
At the same time, this
yeah,
is fiction, thank God. Like,
yeah.
at the same time, thank God this person doesn't really exist.
Yeah. Yeah, I've who was it? It was Rooney Mara in whenever she was in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, or maybe it
God.
was Numi Rapace, one of the Lisbeth Salanders, where
I'm gonna like look up a picture of Claire Foy.
the Lisbeth Salander character is pretty well liked amongst people, which I'm pretty sure it was Rooney Mara who I guess was asked a question about that or talked about that, and she was like, if you knew Elizabeth Salander in real life, you wouldn't like her. Like you wouldn't be around her. You wouldn't want to be friends with her. It's that barrier that fiction gives us that allows us to connect with these characters in such a way that we never would in real life, which I think definitely applies to this because, you know, it's easy to say that we'd be horny on Maine for a hot assassin, but like, you know, as we saw in this episode, she literally fucking wrapped a girl in saran wrap and killed her. Like, you see that shit,
I
you're
know, at the very
you're not
end.
horny.
They're
Yeah,
so good
I love that.
at making us so horny and then showing us something so fucked up.
I
Like,
know they don't shy away from it.
and I was so just like, yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes, like Nico's
Mm-hmm.
fucked up, and then I like remembered and I was like, oh my god, she's dead, and then they showed us in a really scary way, and I was like, oh my god. I also don't want to know what happened to the shadow in the bunker. I feel like
Oh,
they were really like playing that up, like that whole situation, and they just sort of abandoned it.
mm,
And I don't want to know what happened in there.
um, are you talking about whenever she's in that God, what is it? Just that big crate or whatever?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
call it a
Okay.
bunker, but
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah, no,
shipping crate.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, and I know that's been a thing that a lot of people have talked about where they're like, what the fuck did she do? And people, you know, have been speculating about like, oh, she broke her arms or oh, she did this and that. But I think the mystery of it is really what makes Villanelle so terrifying, you know? It's that whole you're more afraid of what you can't see kind of thing. So yeah, I personally like that they didn't show that. It just makes her even more threatening in my eyes personally. But yeah, for sure.
I
Mm-hmm.
didn't get the he could kill the shit out of me. I thought that was frustrating because that led us like into this. It led me into this whole like, no, are you just saying that she's queer because she likes psychopaths and she's hot
Mm-hmm.
for psychopaths right now? Are you
Mm-hmm.
really doing that? Are you really giving us that? Are you really like taking us that direction? You've
Mm-hmm.
put together such a good queer like scenario again, and
Mm-hmm.
now you're like pointing to these like heterosexual outlets.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine if she's bi, but it's like that's not it's then it's saying that it's the psychopath like adrenaline rush that she's attracted to and not
Mm-hmm.
just Villanelle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they're hinting at that. They're hinting at like I've never been more awake, but like but it is it because she's addicted to this person, which is
Mm-hmm.
like very addict behavior. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is like a textbook addict
Oh yeah, 100%.
thing, but is it the person or is it the personality type or like I don't know. rarely do we see a story fleshed out this way. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and so for in my personal opinion, I feel like I don't know. And I feel like this season they've tried to kind of I don't know, they've made it so that like, oh, it is Villanelle that she's obsessed with, right? Because they threw the whole ghost plot at her, but it didn't give her, she wasn't obsessed with the ghost like she is Villanelle, even whenever she had to do everything relating to the ghost, it was obviously just work, as opposed to Villanelle being on her mind all the time. And so that's definitely something that I kind of worry about too, in how they're going to portray this. um but I definitely think that she's obsessed with Villanelle as a person. There's a special connection between the two in what they give each other, um and what they do, that I think um only, I don't know, I guess only she could only really get from Villanelle, which actually was going to, I was wanting to talk about that scene in particular whenever she's talking and being like, I'm wide awake, because I thought it was a really, really interesting scene. I thought that it was really interesting in that it seemed like a very, to me at least, it seemed like a very direct parallel to last episode's scene with Villanelle at the AA meeting, whenever she was speaking speaking her quote unquote possible truth, possibly revealing this about herself.
When the
Um,
moderator was like, "Hey, that got cut out of the last podcast because this microphone glitched," but
mhm.
I had my own criticism on how that AA meeting was run.
Yeah,
I just want to,
yeah.
for the record, say that as someone who's attended over 500 AA meetings, there's never been a moderator telling you how to like feel or what you should say or calling you out like that. That doesn't
Hmm.
happen. Cross talking like that doesn't happen. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen in Ireland, New York, Maine, California, St. Louis,
Hmm.
Texas. The list goes on.
Hmm.
So but I do like that. I also miss her. I miss the friend. Like she's bye. Like it was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna like manipulate your brother now, which I know is the point. But I hated the last episode of them all in one place, and now I like the brother more after this episode. But I miss her.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. It sucks that I think she was just kind of used as a plot device to get to the brother, which is butts, because it's like, come on, you know, like I get it, but also she seemed cool. So how about she not be a one-off character? Even though I'm pretty sure she is, which sucks. But yeah, who knows? Maybe she'll just come back in the last episode and be like, "What's up, guys? Here I am. My brother's a piece of shit," and then she punches him in the face or something. That that moment with Eve was really interesting, and I mean, obviously, I guess telling, because it's her literally being like, I'm just gonna fucking spew all the shit that I've kind of been feeling this season. And I don't know. She's getting closer to just kind of being like, I'm kind of fucked up, and I'm okay with that. Let's just roll with it. And maybe this last episode she'll finally actually kind of come to that and be like, okay, I'm just gonna embrace this part of me for realsies now, and I'm just gonna kill a motherfucker, because I definitely think they've been leading to it.
But I didn't really get anything out of the preview. Like
Mm.
maybe they didn't want to spoil anything, but I
Mhm.
truly couldn't suss out any
Mhm.
plot
Mhm.
other than like
So,
a Handmaid's Tale outfit. Oh, what did you think about what did you think about the fashion? Because I felt like what's his name, Aaron? I felt like Aaron gave a very strong Stanley Tucci and Devil Wears Prada vibe this episode.
yeah, when I got your text from that, I was like, holy shit. Yeah, where he's so particular about it, and yeah, I agree with that. I think it's weird. The whole Villanelle Aaron um thing I think is weird because they're obviously trying to like sh- show parallel or not parallels but connections between the two, where I definitely think they're trying to be like, yeah, Aaron's also a psychopath, and they're trying to kind of show, okay, look at this, he's a different brand of psychopath almost.
Yeah,
And his
I liked their
yeah.
distinction where she's like, you don't want to know what they're all doing, or you don't
Mhm.
want to like interact with them at all.
Mhm.
Like he wants to know everything about everybody, and he
Mhm.
doesn't feel lonely when he has everyone's information. She
Mhm.
wants to like interact with everybody and
Yeah.
like kind of like mark her territory like a dog that pees
Mhm.
on every fire hydrant
Yeah, which I
vibe.
definitely think is because they've kind of highlighted Villanelle and how she's kind of how she wants control over certain situations. Like I personally view that whole scene whenever she strangles that chick in the bathroom after basically being rejected from Eve as kind of her trying to regain control over the situation, and she only really knows how to do that uh, through fear and killing people. And with Aaron, it seems like he gets that through just like little things of controlling people, like with Villanelle and, ooh, you don't like orange chocolates. Don't wear that. Wear this. And how he gets that, and, you know, I don't know, and how he always has to know everybody's information so that he has that control over them. I just think that it's interesting how they've kind of shown these two different people who are very similar but very very different. It's like they have the same symptoms, but they are expressed in different ways. It's cool. It's yeah. I'm as much as I just hate boys being thrown into plots, and as much as I do dislike Aaron just because he's annoying and sucks, he's still interesting at least. At least
This
he's.
is the most I've liked a boy
Mm-hmm.
the whole series so far. This is the most
Mm-hmm.
I've liked a boy in the plot.
Yeah.
Besides the son, I like him too. I
Yeah,
think
I do love Kenny.
they've
He's a good.
they've taken a lot away from him.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the most I've liked a boy. I did not find
Mm-hmm.
Aaron interesting. In fact, I loathed him and wanted him dead until this
Yeah.
episode. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I see what they were doing. But that was really
Yeah.
annoying. I didn't really get the throwing. Did he throw a book? I feel like he threw a book.
He like dropped a book, not angrily, but like aggressively into Villanelle's lap,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
boring.
she hit him with it, which was fun at least.
Oh, right. I think aggression with guys, just like immediately, I just like tune out or zone out or like
Mm-hmm.
they turn off essentially.
Yeah.
Which is why they're not effective. So I think that's why I liked
Mm-hmm.
this episode so much, is because it was
Mm-hmm.
so like controlling and manipulative without like any aggressive action. It felt like they made like
Yeah.
a shift in the way that he like interacts, in that
Yeah.
it was like all verbal demands,
Mm-hmm.
and I like that so much more
Mm-hmm.
than when there's like aggression involved, because then I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm bored. Like,
Yeah, and I definitely feel like media falls back on that a lot, where it's like the aggressive man who is gonna get what he wants through physical violence, so to speak. So it was definitely interesting to be like, you know, I never thought that Aaron was gonna like hit Villanelle or anything, but he still had that that I don't know, he still had that control to it, which was definitely in a different, interesting way. So I definitely agree with you. It's a fresh take. Do you have any predictions on how this season's gonna end?
no, I don't, because I didn't understand what they were doing with Aaron at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sh- her, she had this, like, I don't know how to explain, but this, like, interest or focus or, like, light behind her eyes throughout this episode
Uh,
while
who? Sorry.
Villanelle did.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, okay.
while in the company of Aaron.
Mm.
And I don't really know what any of that was. I, like,
Mm-hmm.
I, like, don't know what it's leading up to.
Mm-hmm.
Uh...
I
Yeah.
definitely think that they're trying to at least make Aaron and Villanelle seem like a possible thing for that sweet tension, um,
Mm.
which I don't consider sweet because
Mm.
quote unquote heterosexual tension is never my cup of tea personally. Um, so I'm like, get that shit out of here. But I will say that my biggest hope for the end of this series, not or the end of this season, and I don't know, it might just be hopeful thinking on my part, but I think it's actually a viable option, maybe, um, is that Villanelle and Eve are going to team up and straight up run away at the end of this season, because I think I don't know. I think like with the whole Carolyn thing, I think that they've been trying to make little hints that I don't know, that she's playing Eve in some way or she knows more than Eve does, and so I feel like this last episode Eve's gonna figure that out and be like, "Hey, what the fuck?" And then I don't know, maybe Constantine will do something too, so Villanelle's like, "What the fuck?" But
Carolyn's
I
whole, like, morality is so gray to me. I'm like, I don't actually know
yeah,
what she thinks is okay and what she doesn't. Like, I don't know
yeah,
what where she draws a line with stuff. I don't
mm-hmm,
really know how she
yeah,
rationalizes things. Like, I have no sense of. I feel like Carolyn is just purely uh true neutral. Like,
yeah.
when it comes to
She's
D&D, like,
yeah,
her
one hundred
alignment is
percent.
true neutral. She's not
Mm-hmm.
chaotic neutral. She's not lawful
Mm-hmm.
neutral. She's just, like, fully neutral. It's like I don't know what's driving her, or
Yeah,
I
yeah.
find her really pleasant, but,
Mm-hmm.
like her lines are always so weird. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, just try not. We just really don't want Aaron dead.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like,
Yeah.
but, like, because that would be a nuisance, and, like,
Mm-hmm.
paperwork is, like, the, like, subtext
Mm-hmm.
of, like, what it
Yeah.
felt like.
Yeah. But then at the same time, whenever Eve was trying to confront her and be like, Villanelle killed somebody in plain sight in cold blood, she was like, I don't give a shit. I'm fencing. Get out of here. Like, that's totally acceptable. But yeah, but then this season, or not this season, this episode, she's like, hey, can't kill anybody. You really, she can't kill anybody. Hey, Eve, make sure she doesn't kill anybody. It's like, what's your game? What's your game, friendo?
Yeah, I
She's
don't
she's
know.
definitely an enigma. She's a really cool character. But I think we're gonna get some reveal of what's going on with her next episode. Maybe, hopefully. Who's to say?
I don't know if I'm good at predictions anymore.
Hmm. I don't know. This Killing Eve as a TV show has definitely it's been kind of tough for me, and I think a lot of people, honestly. It's been pretty unpredictable, but at the same time, whenever whatever does happen, like happens, it still makes sense and is satisfying. Which props to the showmakers, props to the writers for that. But yeah, I I definitely think it's kind of hard with this show. I don't know. I don't. Neither of them can die. There's a season 3, so neither of them can die. I'm praying. I guess we'll see next week.
That's true. Do you have any other thoughts about this episode before I call in a new guest?
Uh, no, I thought it was really good.
I know this
I'm
was one
into
of my
it.
favorite episodes, I think. Could always use more gay. Well, okay. I already said the thing about the British dude. Yeah, I just like don't do that again. Don't, Phoebe. If you're listening, no more. Okay, no more of that. We're good.
No more heterosexual. Hopefully,
You like
yeah.
planted the seed. It got fulfilled. There was like this tension that they might fuck. It like
Mm-hmm.
happened. It's
Mm-hmm.
done.
Mm-hmm.
He's annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
We're good now. He's a tissue. We're gonna move on. Cool.
We just need Eve to fully embrace her Villanelle horniness. She embraces it in theory, but then Villanelle's in the room and she's like, shit, I can't like actually fuck her. We
It's
need her to be
so
like, I can't not fuck her. We need to get to that point.
she's gotten so awkward around Villanelle, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
She's me when I'm around queer people, honestly. I like relate really hard to Eve. I also really liked the
she's
bread moment. I liked when she passed the bread and then Villanelle like
yeah,
it was
that
short, it
nice
was
little
small, but it was gay and I liked it.
that nice little hand moment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so wild to think that we're on season 2 and they've given us a lot of Villanelle Eve moments, but then we're still like at this point where the second that they actually touch each other, even in the littlest way, where it's just like a collective gasp and we're all just like,
Mm-hmm.
ah,
Yeah.
nice, you know.
Yeah.
I think everybody will spontaneously combust if they ever uh kiss, let alone fuck. If they fuck, then I think we're all goners, honestly. But what a sweet death that would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really see a full sex scene happening without a death. But
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
lesbian content for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Next episode is called You're Mine, which I
Mm.
mean, I don't think they're gonna fuck, but you know, I think a kiss is plausible.
Yeah.
I think it's in the cards.
A Valentine's Day special.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to that line. That's some
Okay.
good gay
I'm gonna
content.
phone a friend. Oh no.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. And join us next time and buy our merch. Bye bye.
Bye.
Psycho killer.